Welcome to Encavis. This morning, we released our Q1 2022 results, which are high above previous year's key figures. That's, by the way, the reason why we already released these figures via an ad hoc information on May 2nd. Well, let's have first a look into the highlights of 2022 before we go into the details. First of all, to understand our figures, we have to understand that already in Q1, we got 120 megawatt of new parks connected to the grid. 24 megawatts of our Dutch parks, which we acquired at the end of last year, and 71 megawatt of our Danish solar farms, which we acquired in Q4 2021 as well. And Großbenitz, a 25 megawatt park, which was under construction since last year. In addition to the 120 megawatt, which were connected to the grid in Q1, we acquired 12 megawatt of a wind farm Svoldrup in Denmark, beginning of this year, and it was connected to the grid in Q2, and therefore adding to the revenues in the next months. Not only our own portfolio was increased, but asset management was active in the market in Q1 2022 as well. The Encavis Infrastructure Fund acquired its first solar park, Arkidona, in the province of Malaga of 56 megawatt. This is, by the way, the first solar farm of Encavis Asset Management with a power purchase agreement in place as well. This park was online in March 2022. And Encavis Asset Management entered the Irish market with the acquisition of a 7 turbines wind farm. Last year, this was an extraordinarily good year. We got 435 megawatts of capacities connected to the grid. 300 megawatts out of the 435 megawatts were the park Talayuela in Spain, alone 300 megawatt peak. This park was connected to the grid at the end of March 2021. And in addition to that, 135 megawatt of capacities were acquired throughout the year 2021 and connected to the grid. And as I pointed out, in Q1 2022, 120 megawatt were connected to the grid. Why is it so important? Well, to understand the figures, why we have such a growth, which I will show you in the Q1 figures, because the 300 megawatt of Talayuela, as well as the 135 megawatt, which were connected to the grid throughout last year, and the 120 megawatt were not in place in Q1 2021. If we have a look into our figures, we firstly should start with the energy production of our existing portfolio to explain you why our growth was so substantial compared to previous year's Q1. As a matter of fact, we generated in our existing portfolio 657 gigawatt hours, which is 23% more than in the previous year. This positive development is solely due to better meteorological conditions. It is not that Q1 2022 was an outstandingly good quarter. No, it was just an average standard weather condition. But previous year's Q1 was extremely bad meteorological condition, and therefore just coming back to standard weather means an improvement of 23% in power generation in our existing portfolio. If we then have a look in the line above that, then the total energy production of our company was, in our own portfolio, grew from 536 gigawatt hours last year to 710 gigawatt hours this year, which is an improvement of 33%. So the additional 10% improvement in our gigawatt hour production is due to the increased portfolio, which I outlined on the previous page. If we then have a look on the revenues, we generated 19 million euros of revenues compared to 58.9 million previous year, which is an improvement by 53%. 33% came from the energy production, let it be capacity increases and better meteorological conditions. The other part is due to an improvement of the revenues of our Encavis Asset Management, as well as better prices in the sold power. As you might know, that 90% of our revenues in the fiscal year 2022 are long-term fixed via PPAs or feed-in tariffs. Additional 5% are short-term hedged and 5% of the revenues are merchant. With these last 10%, with the short-term hedged and merchant positions, we enjoy higher electricity prices. These prices, which were realized in Q1 2022, especially in January and February, so before the war started in Ukraine, these prices were on a similar level as in Q4 2021 and therefore above the level of Q1 2021. These three effects, the better metrology, the additional capacities, and the better prices, and fourthly, the improved results of asset management, supported the development of our EBITDA, which improved by 64% to 64 million euros, and the EBIT, which skyrocketed by 168% to 34.8 million. The operating cash flow developed absolutely in parallel on the same level as the EBITDA. And the earnings per share, which were a negative 0.05 per share in last year's first quarter, now is at positive 0.08 per share, the same level as in 2020. Well, if we have a look in our segments, then we see that the solar plants have 90 million euros in group level, with 52 million euros being the biggest portion of our group, contributing 57% of our revenues. Please have in mind that the irradiation is pretty low in the first quarter, and therefore the portion of the solar parks is not of that magnitude, which we will see over the year. But it is a pretty windy time, the first quarter, and therefore the wind farms contribute 39%, while the technical service is on a low but stable level, and the asset management contributed 3.7 million euros or 4%. If we go to the details, the PV segment enjoyed firstly a higher production, which is based on metrology as well as capacity additions, and slightly on higher prices, and kept therefore the high EBITDA margin of previous year and improved the EBIT margin. The wind farms had enjoyed an improvement of the revenues by 72%. 25% of that came out of the capacity additions, the remaining part from energy prices. We enjoy here high energy prices, specifically in the German portfolio, because the feed-in tariff in Germany is structured in a way that it is a floor price. That means higher spot market prices will be remunerated to us if they exceed the feed-in tariff. The margins in this segment improved to 86% on EBITDA level and on 67% on EBIT level. In the asset management business, we see a significant growth of our revenues by 80% to 3.7 million euros. This reflects the growth of the company. Specifically, this is due to the increased capacities, which bring us higher remuneration for advisory and commercial management services. On headquarters, there are only very low changes. The change is here due to the growth of the company and the increased headcount. Well, with these strong figures in Q1, what does it mean to the guidance of the fiscal year 2022? Well, we confirmed it. Why? Let's have a look first on our guidance fiscal year 2022. We announced already in March that we will increase our revenues this year based on the existing portfolio, which we had at that time, by 14% to more than 380 million euros, and by 11% on EBITDA and EBIT, bringing them up to more than 285 million and 166 million respectively. The operating cash flow is expected to grow slightly by 3% to more than 260 million euros, the operating EPS to 0.51 per share. This guidance was, as usual, based on the assumption that we will have standard weather conditions throughout the whole year, and which was true in Q1, and included, as I pointed out, all the parks connected to the grid, which I reported on. And based on the assumption that 96% of our revenues in this year are hedged and price fixed, so that there is really no risk to it. We did, as we announced in March, did not include the impact from war in Ukraine. Due to the war in Ukraine, higher volatility in the power price market became relevant. Sometimes the power prices jump up on a daily basis by 30% and the next day 30% down. On that basis, we cannot announce a reliable guidance. Therefore, we said that we will base that guidance on the electricity prices which were forecasted at the end of December for the whole year 2022. Certainly, we knew pretty good at the end of December last year what the power prices will be in January and February. And therefore, there is price-wise no surprise in Q1. So the Q1 figures were pretty much on our expectations. So therefore, they are in line with guidance, and therefore no reason to increase the guidance now. For the time being, if the electricity prices will stay on the high level, we will reconsider the guidance in the future. What does this mean to our business segments, this guidance? First of all, we have the most important chunk, which is the solar business with a contribution of 73% to our revenues line, and the wind farms with 21% to our revenues line. You see here the difference to the portion of revenues in Q1, which is meteorology-wise more windy and not with so much irradiation. The margins in the solar parks are considered to be stable on a more than 80% level, and the EBIT margin on a close to 50% level. And the same applies to the wind farms, which are fairly on 80% EBITDA margin, as well as on the mid-40s EBIT margin. The asset management business is considered, although they had a pretty strong first quarter, but that is a pretty volatile business, and depending on the sales they can do, it is considered to be pretty stable over the year 2022, with solid margins of 43% and 40% EBIT margin. Ladies and gentlemen, on May 19th, we will have our annual shareholder meeting, unfortunately virtual again in these days, but in 2017, we announced that based on the dividend of 0.20 in 2016, that we will increase our dividend to 0.30 for the fiscal year 2021, and this will then be 0.30. So we suggest to the annual shareholder meeting a dividend payment of 0.30, which absolutely goes in line with the dividend strategy which we announced 5 years ago. This increase of dividend reflected the increasing cash flows from our wind and solar parks over the time. Now, we usually fulfill our guidances and promises to the market, and this over 5 years was this dividend policy fully fulfilled. Now it is time, therefore, with the fulfillment of this promise, to define a new dividend strategy for the future. As a matter of fact, we do live in a very volatile world. Electricity prices are jumping up and down and have an extremely high volatility. In addition to that, the EU decided to become independent from Russian gas, oil, coal, and nuclear power sticks. And by this, the EU wants to increase the number of parks, renewable parks, being connected to the grid. And this plan, REPowerEU, means really a challenge for the whole market to realize so many parks. We are prepared with a very good cash position, a strong balance sheet, a strong equity ratio, our knowledge of the PPA market and our size to cope with these challenges and to go into that. But if we want now to invest heavily into renewables, we do not want to limit our investment abilities by promising already today what dividend we will pay next year. Therefore, we decided not to go ahead with the dividend strategy, but to decide and announce next year what dividend we will pay for fiscal year 2022. This is then based on the success of the company in 2022 and on the overall development and economic success, as well as on the investments we could have realized in 2022 and we will see in 2023 ahead of us. The one sentence I can tell you is about the dividend. Whatever we decide next year, it will be competitive and appropriate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good time. Please stay safe and healthy. Thank you very much.
Since you watched this company video until the end, I'm guessing you liked the video. That's probably because we work very hard to create the most engaging and value-added content possible for you. If you're a stock-listed company or corporation and want to find out how we at C11A can make a company video with and about you, please email us at community@c11a.com.